if it's not worth, if it's something is anything, and then we'll pivot and figure it out, right?
Right? So let's see. Is there any way to share slides here? Otherwise, you guys are just gonna.
So I did give you, I did say only show people sharing video, and then I did enable others to share screen. So we should be okay.
Okay. Oh, share my screen. Look at that. Now I gotta find the thing because I had to just let it reboot. Hold on one second. We'll get this. I promise.
We got this.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
All right, so while Tracy's getting set up, I met Tracy in Orlando at Marketer's Heart in February. She was the first person that I met. I don't think I've told you that yet. We really just hit it off from the very first moment. Tracy teaches how to build engaging, fantastic, fabulous courses that people want to take and want to finish. What is it? Hashtag no more crappy courses.
That is, oh, very meta. Hold on.
And I joined Tracy in her group a couple weeks ago to discuss all the fantastic things about choosing a platform and what needs to go into those decisions. And she wanted to be in here and talk about what you can do to build a really engaging, really awesome course that is best suited to your audience.
Can you see?
I can.
Woo, woo. All right. That's me in a nutshell. Yeah, so we're going to go through today, Jessica asked for a crash course on courses, and that is exactly what you're going to get. It's going to be fast and a little dirty, and that's just kind of the way I like it. Please know that if you have any questions at all, you can post them here, and I will come back and answer them. I definitely want to be here for you in terms of getting you all of the information you need, but I'm just going to kind of run through what I believe is the most important part of creating a course. Most important components, that is. And we're going to start like right at the beginning. So here we go. Who is this Tracy person? I'm a certified medical assistant by trade. I'm actually in scrubs today. I'm going to do some client work, which will have me being on site at a medical clinic. But I started out as a medical assistant. I ended up teaching medical assisting for a couple of years and ended up running 3 programs for a community college. And what that, why that applies here is that I had to rework their curriculums from the ground up. And if you know anything about like healthcare, I ended up working for a hospital-based ambulance service as well in their education program. It's competency-based. So competency-based means that we have to get a result, right? Like you have to be able to teach the thing that you're trying to teach, because lives are at stake if you don't, especially in emergency medicine. And those things are very measurable, and our accreditation, our ability to teach actually stems from like being able to guarantee that outcome. So I later went on and got a master's degree in curriculum instruction. I now have 10 years of creating education for adult learners behind me. And also through all that time, 30 years, I've been an entrepreneur. So that sort of all blends together in terms of I kind of have an intuition about businesses and about like the right steps to take in business, as well as this course design, education component. So that's who I am and where I come from. So spoiler alert, no one wants to buy another course, another coaching program, or another consultation. That it was the first time somebody said that to me, I was like, wait, what? But I'm gonna explain to you why that's the case here in just a minute. And you're gonna be like, Tracy, why are you selling course design if you're saying that nobody should create a course? And that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying nobody wants to buy a course. So let's start at the beginning. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? The age-old argument, right? You couldn't have had an egg if you didn't have a chicken, but where the heck did the chicken come from if there wasn't an egg? So we need to start thinking about the first thing that we need. And what most course gurus will tell you is that you need a topic for your course. You just think of a topic and then you create a course around it, right? Like that's what we've always been told. And what I'm going to tell you is there are two things that we need to have, that your very first things. One of them, I'm sure you guys already know, your ideal client. We need to know who it is we serve. And I'm not going to get deep into, finding your ideal client, but I am going to hit the fine points, because I just feel like any conversation about creating a product that doesn't start with the ideal client is not going to serve you. So why is it important to really, really refine your ideal client? I teach a getting started class for a local nonprofit for women here in Minneapolis. It's a part of helping them build a business plan that they can then apply for grants and loans to get their businesses off the ground. And this is the lesson that makes them so mad at me. Really? Can I swear, Jess?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Really pisses them off. Because the basic objection when you talk about niching down or really defining who you serve is, but I don't want to exclude anyone who wants to buy from me. And my favorite student from that beginner course was, she had a food truck that served comfort foods. Like we got cornbread and mac and cheese and pulled pork and you name it, like all of the good, delicious comfort foods. And when I asked her, who is your ideal client, who you're marketing to? And she's like, well, everybody. I'm like, well, not everybody wants comfort food. She's like, well, I don't care. Whoever wants it can come get it. And it was a big argument between us before I finally got her to sort of define who is that person. You guys all know, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. There are 7 billion people on the planet. You can't serve them all. So we want to make sure that we really, really define who that is that we serve. And my students in that class always say, what, am I just supposed to make up a person? And, kind of you are. This picture has how many other? Eight gorgeous ladies. This was from a business conference that I was at pre-pandemic. And so the 8 gorgeous ladies in this picture, one of them's me. But only one of them is my ideal client. So just because these are all smart, savvy, entrepreneurial ladies doesn't mean that they all necessarily are who I serve. So you have to ask yourself the questions. And rather than me run through this all, because I know so much of this we've already done, I do have a download for you, and I'll drop that link in the comments for you later. But it's tracyteaches.biz/ICA worksheet, which will just kind of take you through these questions. If you've never done this work, please do it. It's so, so important. You need to know exactly who you serve. You need to know what she needs. And you need to know basically what is the problem that keeps her up at night. If you want to go a little deeper into your ideal client, I highly encourage that you find a picture, either of someone, your dream client, the person that you love working with. Get a picture of them, put it on your desk, or go looking for someone who looks like them. If you're brand new in business, figure out who that ideal person is and just find them. You can find them on Facebook. Be a little creepy about it, steal a picture so that you can at least imagine what this person looks like. I like to have conversations with my ideal client in my head. It doesn't make me crazy, I promise. So the other part that we need to understand then too is who the villain in the story is. So you need to make sure that you are figuring out what problem they have, who's the villain, what sort of pain do they have, how is that aggravated, and then how will you fix it? Remember though that you are never the hero in your person's story. If you haven't read Donna Miller's Story Brand, I highly, highly encourage that you do it. You are just the guide, and you are going to be the one to lead them to the solution, allowing them to be their own hero. And so why is this important? You've got this ideal client. He or she is struggling with some problem. They're not sure where to turn. And we have solutions to problems, right? So what are we actually buying? And this is the big question. So nobody wants to buy your course, right? Nobody does. They want to buy a solution to a problem. They want to buy a transformation. It's why I'm a little different than other people who talk about courses, because I focus very, very specifically on that transformation, right? That competency-based education. If you aren't guaranteeing a transformation, you are not doing them a service, and you're actually going to hurt your business by creating a course. If you're not able to get them from where they want to be to where, or from where they're starting to where they want to be, and you sell that to them without delivering, you're hurting yourself. I can't say that enough. So if we buy cleaning supplies, what are we buying? I don't want to go to the store and buy paper towel and Windex, right? Like, I'm not trying to get like Clorox wipes because I want Clorox wipes. No, I want a solution to a problem. I want a clean house. I buy, paper towel and Windex because I want shiny windows, right? So we need to really think about what it is that we're offering and where that need is. Does anybody in this picture need a rain poncho? No, like, we're not going to try to sell rain ponchos in a place that doesn't get any rain, right? So we want to make sure that we are really sure about what our client, what problem they have. And then we also want to make sure that our client actually knows they have the problem that we're going to solve for them. That's like, this is the first thing before we ever get started creating things. We do that through our messaging. We can do that through like some belief shifting stuff, on Facebook. And I can certainly talk all day long about that kind of stuff too. The next question then is, once you know that your audience has this problem, you need to be very clear that you can solve it for them. So I'm the education girl. I know everything there is to know, not really, about creating online education for adult learners. I have a lot of people that come into my world. They come to my Becoming a Course Creators Facebook group, and they're like, I need your help marketing my course. I'm not that girl. I'm not the marketing girl. Justice, your marketing girl. I've got lots of other people that can teach you marketing. Can I learn marketing and teach it to my audience? I mean, I'm learning all the time. I probably could do that, and I could certainly do the research and create a course. But you need to make sure that you can solve that problem, either with what you know or what you're willing to learn in order to pass that on. So Steve Jobs says it best when he says people don't buy products, they buy better versions of themselves. So we need to make sure that we are, that's what we're actually selling, that's what we're actually creating. One of my favorite cartoons of all time that illustrates what your ideal client thinks they need versus what they actually need. I think she needs to drink less coffee. And then just one quick point on that, like, what is your audience really buying? If you say, do you want to buy a weight loss course? How many people, I would love to buy a weight loss course. No, nobody wants a weight loss course, right? Nobody wants a social media marketing course. Nobody wants a course on processes and systems for your business. We don't want that. Like, I don't want another course. I've got a library of them. Do I want to rock my outfit at my next class reunion? Hell yes, I do. Like, that would be just, my ex-husband and I graduated from the same high school. Yes, I would love to show up rocking an outfit. Do I want to 10x my revenue in 90 days using this specific social media strategy? Absolutely. I definitely want to do that. Do I want to save 10 hours a week? Yes. So hopefully that makes sense. It's that, yes, you teach the thing, but unless you are delivering it in a way that your ideal client is like, oh yeah, that's the thing that I want to have, you're going to miss the boat. You won't be able to get them in, keep them in, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. So if your audience has a problem, if you can clearly define that problem and you have the solution, you have the ability to deliver that, you should definitely create the course. So you were already through the first major hurdle. The next thing then we want to talk about, and I have a dog whining behind me, so if I start throwing pencils over my head, it's just to make him stop. Your unique selling proposition. This is the thing I think that holds a lot of course creators back, is who am I to create this course, right? Who am I? There are 70 other people who are doing this thing that I do. Who am I to do it? Why, what makes me think that I can sell this program if everyone else is doing it? And that's your unique selling proposition. How do you do it? What makes you different from everyone else? Maybe it's just the fact that you have pink hair or a golden retriever that makes you like, you're the one that people are going to connect with over those things. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to do something completely different in order to attract your ideal client into the thing you do.
Tracy,
I do, and
can I
yeah,
jump in for 1 second and
yeah,
say
yeah,
something that I think you saw the other day also? The
yeah,
only difference between The Voice and American Idol is chairs that spin around.
yes.
That's
Yep.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny because and we've all done it, right? So I had I moved high schools from between sophomore and or freshman and sophomore year in high school. And I went from being super good at math, super good at algebra in my old school to a new school where I was no longer good at algebra. The difference wasn't me, obviously, because I rocked algebra and then all of a sudden now I can no longer do algebra. The difference in that case was the teacher. And I think we've all had instances where, you might look at something a dozen times and you're like, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And then someone new explains it to you and you're like, oh, yeah. Your ideal clients will find you because of the things that make you different and because of the unique ways that you do things. I do encourage you, and we'll talk a little bit at the end about having a framework, having a signature way that you deliver the thing that you do. Um, we'll talk about that at the end, but that also sets you apart in that, you have this, I have this method that I use to get you there. And that'll be really helpful. If you're not clear on what you do or who you help, you need to do that. Your I do or I help statement. I do blank for blank. I help so and so do so and such. I help high integrity, usually female entrepreneurs, but I do have some male clients all of a sudden. Create the program their audiences are craving with an emphasis on delivering transformations. Like that's what I do and who I do it for. So that's just the very, very core of your message if you haven't done that work. Here's my my poor distraught drinking her wine on the floor lady again. Why is this so important? Because we want this poor distraught person to be this person who's engaging in your course and then becomes this person, right? Who's my problems are solved, I've accomplished the thing, and now I am zen with the world. Another just little tidbit here, confused people don't buy. So make sure again that you are crystal clear on what you're doing. No one wants to buy your product. They want to buy that transformation. They're going to want those results that you promise them. So the emphasis is on the results. And as we kind of shift gears here, we're going to start talking about structuring your course and what that should look like. I just want to leave this thought with you. The details do not matter. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about what you teach and sort of how to know what to present, how you're delivering it, whether you're delivering it at evergreen or if you're dripping the content, or if you are, just sending it out via email, which I'll just tell you, we Jess was in my group a couple weeks ago talking about platforms. Best course I ever took was just dripped into my email. If you're letting the whole platform thing, get you down, you're losing time and, valuable income by getting stuck there. Jessica can help you. And it doesn't matter that much. Like it really, what you need to do is make sure that you're educating how you do that, where you put it, whatever, that doesn't matter. And the other part, whether or not you have a Facebook group, whether or not you have, weekly Q&A calls, we don't have to worry about that right now. That's comes down the road. We're going to talk about how to get engagement in your program, but that's not something that I want you guys to be stuck in the overwhelm with. And also, your learner does not care. As long as you're telling them, I'm going to get you to this transformation, they don't care exactly how they get there yet. What the heck is a transformation and how do I get one, right? So we're going to switch gears now to the education world and talk about goals versus outcomes. So your outcome is that transformation. What do you want them to get when they're done? If you teach underwater basket weaving, my favorite example, at the end of your course, you want them to have been able to weave a basket underwater, right? Like that's the ultimate goal, and to have it be, not a big shit show. So forget everything you know about goals in business. Your goal in your course is this big overarching umbrella. It is, your goal and your outcome are basically the same thing. Your goal does not have to be measurable. So my goal is to teach you course creation. I don't have to measure that. What I do need, though, is very clear, measurable outcomes that add up to that, objectives, that add up to that outcome. I need very clear, measurable outcome, objections that meet my outcome. Too many O words. So your course objectives help you lay the building blocks, and I'm going to give you an example of this here in a minute, of how to get from point A to point B. And I love my alliteration. It allows you to deliver definitive definitions. So there you go. Why do I have objections or objectives? Geez, why am I overcoming objections, Jessica? It doesn't make any sense. Objectives. The reason that you have objectives is because I want you to imagine your course creation journey. Your learner is standing on one side of a river, and on the other side of the river is that outcome that they want, right? Now they've got to get across this river, and they're going to do that by jumping across some stones in the river, right? So picture, your flowing river, hopefully not flowing too quickly, and some, strategically placed stepping stones that go across the river. Every one of those little stepping stones is one of your objectives. So we're going to jump from one, to take them from where they started to the first objective. When it makes sense, then we'll take them to the next one and the next one and the next one. And eventually that gets them across the river to their outcome, right? So the reason we have those really clear, measurable objectives is so we can decide how much content is too much and how much is just enough. There's no such thing as too many blueberries. I'll never believe that there is. But there is such a thing as too much content. So we need to be really careful about that. And your objectives allow you to measure your content to decide whether it should be included or not. It's one of the biggest sources of overwhelm for course creators that I work with. And they're like, I don't know, should I include this? Should I include that? And this little bit of wisdom came straight out of the Marketer's Heart conference that Justin and I were at last month, or 2 months ago.
February.
I know, so long ago. And that is, the less you include in your program, the more value you provide. And this is counterintuitive for most of us, right? The less you include, the more value you're providing. And the reason that is your audience is paying you to curate all of the content in the world on this thing that you're an expert in and give them only what they need to know. They only want to know, how do I get this thing done? They want to do it as fast, efficiently, and as effectively as possible, right? So if you include everything, you've got the kitchen sink in there, you've got your, grandma's recipe for cinnamon rolls or whatever the heck that is. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, I thought I was learning how to build a doghouse, but I don't know what all this stuff is in here for. We just want to make sure that we're meeting those objectives and nothing more. No, though, duplication is not fluff. Duplication, repeating things over and over, using worksheets to, reinforce what you're talking about, giving exercises. That's not fluff, that's repetition. And repetition is a really good thing. So I'll introduce you to my friend Herman. I did my master's thesis on Herman Ebbinghaus and his theory of his study in forgetting, but specifically my thesis was on repetition. Anybody wants to read 40-some pages on repetition in education, you let me know. I'll send her right over to you. Herman Ebbinghaus basically pioneered the study of memory. He was the first person to describe the learning curve. And what that basically looks like, there's Herman, isn't he handsome, is when you're first presented with a piece of information, it doesn't become knowledge to you. After this is a better graphic to show this. So after your first repetition of information, in about 18 minutes, that little tidbit of information will decrease to 50%. You only remember 50% of what you're presented with. Over the course of 7 days, that'll drop and eventually it goes away completely. But if you encounter that information a second time, and especially if you do it strategically, but if you encounter it a second time, then it takes a little bit longer for it to fade. The third time, a little bit longer. The fourth time, a little bit longer. The fifth time, a little bit longer. So the idea is once you encounter a piece of information 10 times, it becomes knowledge. It's the same principle in marketing that you need to encounter a piece of marketing 7 times in order for you to act on it. And why is that, right? Because our brain creates like a little peg where we can hang information. So the first time you get it, you're like, I don't know what to do with this information. The second time you get the information, you're like, oh, I have a peg for that. And you can hang that information on there. So by the time you get to the 7th through the 10th time, you're like, oh yeah, I know this is true. And now I'm going to act, or now I remember what it is. So that's where that repetition piece comes in. So anything that you can do throughout your program, and this is part of what I teach inside my program, I call it the secret sauce, will help that stick for your learner.
Tracy, is that why I can remember song lyrics from a long time ago, but I can't remember what I said yesterday?
Yes. It's the reason that I can remember song lyrics from the 60s, 70s, and today, and not, why I walked into this room. Yeah, absolutely. So it's important to remember that fluff is good for bunnies, is not good for horses. So just keep that in mind. It's the one thing my clients always like, this is the graphic they remember, because they're like, I thought about throwing in this thing and then I remembered fluff is only for bunnies. It's so important that we feel like we need to give them everything, and we really, really don't. Engagement is a big thing. I talk about this a lot in my program. I'm only just going to touch on it here, but make sure that if you're giving your learners activities, things to work on, that you're making it meaningful for them. If you're in a business-to-business model, then that makes it really easy, right? Because if you're teaching them Facebook ads, then you're allowing them in whatever practice they're doing to do that in their own business. So much of corporate education, and even the nonprofit that I work with, they use a lot of case studies and, like a test client or whatever, and it's just not as meaningful for you as a learner if it's not about you. And I think that's, fairly common sense, but we forget that a lot in our education, I think. Letting your learner teach others, if possible, sharing what you learned. I'm a big one on this. I don't fully comprehend something until I try to reteach it either to myself or to someone else. But here's your quick 4 ways to engage your learner. Allow them to leverage what they already know. Give them early wins. This is my number 1 mantra. If you ever hear me speak, I always say, give them wins, give them early, give them often. Give them something super early on that they can take away and go, look what I achieved. It gives them a little dopamine boost. It makes them want to continue. And again, if your learner isn't engaged and they're not finishing your course, they're not getting the outcome, and then they're not saying nice things about you. And ultimately, that's what we want, right? Is to create a whole world full of raving fans. Give them control over when and how they learn. There are some exceptions to this, but for the most part, that's the case. And then create safe places for them to fail. And this sort of, what I mean by that is you may want to have a, some sort of content review for them, or a Facebook group where they can share their homework, or, allow them to email you a worksheet or whatever. I am not a huge advocate of set it and forget it programs, because I think that it's real hard to know if your learner's engaged and keep them engaged without some interaction. Creating a safe place to fail means that you can let them practice on you before they practice in their business, give them feedback, and then give them those wins. So hopefully that makes sense. We need to make sure we are able to define that gap that we talked about, the gap in my river scenario, where they're starting from to where they're going to, being really certain on, what that is for them. So we need to be very sure where they're starting from. And that all goes back to knowing who your ideal client is. Are they just starting their business? Have they been in business for a while? Do they have an email list yet? Maybe they don't have an email list. They're just getting started versus someone who has an email list of 3,000. These are all really important questions to know depending on your topic, right? So if you want to teach the perfect example is the old peanut butter and jelly sandwich story, right? Where, like you tell somebody how to create a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from scratch. If you tell them to put the peanut butter on the bread and all they do is take the jar of peanut butter and set it on the loaf of bread, they haven't created a sandwich, right? It's really knowing like what their beginning beliefs are or beginning knowledge is, so that you can act from there. The biggest barrier to creating great education, and there's a whole story behind this picture that I'm not gonna like go into detail. The biggest barrier to creating great education is what you already know. So your knowledge and your expansive expertise on your subject is your biggest problem. And I know you're like, well, wait, like, how do I teach about, this thing that I know if I'm not supposed to know it? But what this means is that we forget what it's like to not know this thing, right? So if I were going to explain to you again how to make a peanut butter sandwich, if I have forgotten like what it was like when I was 4 before I ever made my first peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I don't know how to take the twist tie off, and I'm just like, get out the bread, my 4-year-old self might not be able to get there, right? So we need to remember, or we need to be able to be empathetic, put ourselves in our learner's shoes and remember what it was like to not know what we know. To remember how daunting it was to do the thing that we're asking them to do for the first time, and to really sort of remove ourselves from that picture. This is very hard. It's what a lot of course creators fail at, in that, they're talking too high level when their learners are just beginners, or the opposite, equally as infuriating as a learner, if you're talking to them like they don't know anything and they just stepped off the spaceship and they really are much more advanced than you're giving them credit for. So again, I will go back to it over and over. Knowing who your ideal client is key. So now let's get into a little bit of nuts and bolts. And this is the easiest way that I know that I've tried to lay out your course design. I highly recommend you have a pile of sticky notes. It's super helpful if you have 2 different sizes or 2 different colors. And so when you think about your river, where your person's starting from and where they end, I want you to make 2 sticky notes. And I think this is super basic. So hopefully, like, take notes if you need to, but you want 2 sticky notes that say, here's where they're starting. One says, here's where they're starting. And the other one is, here's where they're ending, right? So they're starting out, they've never created a course before. And at the end, they've created a course that delivers a transformation. So that's my beginning, my end point. So then I need to think about those stepping stones to get from point A to point B. What do I need my learner to know to get across the river, to get from where I know they're starting to where I want them to be? And you use your big stickies and you just write the things on each one of those and lay them out in a linear fashion. I have mine literally on the wall behind me for my program. I can literally look over there and be like, all right, week 1, this is what we're going to do. Week 2, this is what we do. So my first thing is I need you to be clear on your ideal client. Like we did that. But you're going to lay those out step by step if you're jumping from one thing to the next, and then really give that a good perusal and say, okay, did I miss anything? Is there too big of a jump between this stone and that stone? Do I need something in the middle to help get them there? And then so what do I need you to know about your ideal client? I need you to know that you need to have one. Like that's part of the argument, right? And so then I'll use my smaller stickies or my other color sticky to just go down from that topic and fill in each thing I need you to know about that larger topic. Does that make sense? Jessica, does that everybody work? Are we good?
Yeah, no, this makes perfect sense. And
Perfect.
And who's your ideal client? You need to do the ideal client worksheet. You need to watch the ideal client workshop.
Exactly.
You need to find a picture of your human, and that's how you define them, and then frame them and put them on your desk.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's basically it in a nutshell, right? Like this is how we're going to lay out our course design, how we're going to lay out what the outline looks like. We're going to have these bigger topics that are like, here's my big stepping stone. They're going to get me across this big old river. And then underneath those stepping stones, what are the objectives that I need to make sure that I teach them? I need them to understand they need one. I need them to figure out how I need them to know how to define one. I need them to literally go find a picture of one. So whatever those objectives are, those are what's going to go on your smaller stickies or your opposite color stickies or whatever down from there. What you end up with, especially if you do this on the wall, it's pretty impressive, is all of your stepping stones across the top. These are your course modules. Like, okay, look, I've just, mapped out 7 modules, and then, or lessons or whatever you want that to be. And then underneath that are your individual objectives, which could be a lesson, or they could just be, each one could be its own lesson, or they each could be an objective in a larger lesson. I do encourage you, we as adult learners have the shortest attention spans imaginable, shorter than a goldfish. I'm sure you guys have heard that before.
And I say, thank you, TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. And so 5 to 10-minute lessons are ideal. Some of the best courses I've ever reviewed have, and I just had a course creator explain, she's like, my lessons are basically little infotainment like blurbs. And then that's exactly like what it should be. Like, it should be amusing, it should be interesting, it should be all of the things so that I want to consume more. We in education, there's what we call the 10 and 2 strategy. And is that as a learner, we might commit to 10 minutes, but then we're going to need 2 minutes to download, to get up and stretch, to, work through an example or something. So I do it. I'm as guilty as the next guy. Some of my lessons get really long, like this one that I'm doing right now. But as a basic rule of thumb, shorter is better.
But I'm going to jump in on here and say this is okay longer because this is done live. If this were done as a recording, we're at 39 minutes since I started this recording, this would never watch. Tracy and I are doing a program together, and I am stuck on the 42-minute video that I've been trying to watch for 3 days.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, shorter is definitely better. And why is that, right? And part of what makes me different from other course gurus is that I help teach the psychology and reinforce that. So why? When we finish one and it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, we get a dopamine boost, right? You finish, and especially if you're in a platform that's like, yeah, you finished, whatever, boop, little shot of dopamine. And then you're like, oh, great, I'm going to do another one. And then 5 more minutes, oh, little shot of dopamine. And then by the time you're done, you're like, oh, listen, look I got 4 done, and you get another shot of dopamine. So you get your dopamine fix everywhere.
And dopamine hits can just be a funny image or a meme or a GIF. It doesn't need to be anything huge and complicated.
Right. Yeah. And any, like I said, with the wins, like any win you can give, and a win might just be finishing the module or, finishing the lesson. It might be you at the end of a particularly tough lesson going, oh my gosh, thank you so much for, sticking with it, to the end. You're amazing. I love you. You're going to get great results, whatever, and just heap the praise on them. They get dopamine from that. So there's lots of ways that we can make this psychology work. I'm just going to run through quick my framework, how I teach course creation. I think this will sort of make things a little bit clearer. But I basically created the Teach framework. Tracy teaches. It's who I am. And I'm just going to walk you through basically what that looks like here. The first thing I have all my clients do is take an inventory. We need to know who you serve and what they need. We've talked about all these things. You need to know why you are the right person to teach what you teach. We need to validate our idea, which I did not talk about, and I won't talk about today. But I have a really easy, sweet little validating your idea lesson. It's $7 if you want it. Feel free to drop a comment, and I will send you the link for that. We need to kind of have an idea how we're going to sell the thing we're creating. We need to know what platforms and tools we want to use, and we need a budget, both time and money. It's one thing to say, like, I'm going to have to buy these 2 pieces of equipment, but it's another thing to be able to map out that time that is going to entail.
And I promise you, it always takes longer to build it than you actually think it does.
Exactly. The other part of taking inventory is really sort of gathering up everything you've already created. because I find a lot of my clients, they think they have to start this thing from scratch. And then once we take a look at like some of the Facebook Lives they've done, some of the blog posts they've written, like some of them have ebooks that they've used, which is basically a course in itself. You can take a lot of what you've already created and use that in your program to make it be something else. And then when we go back to this validating your idea piece too, everybody knows there's the two schools of thought. There's the create the course before you ever try to market it approach. And then there's the market it and make sure you can sell it before you start creating it approach. Mine is sort of a hybrid of the two that I recommend. I don't like selling something before I've created anything, because then I get deep into the overwhelm of, oh my God, now I've got to create it, and then I self-combust. But I also think that you have to have very thoroughly validated and vetted your offer before you start to build it, or you could waste weeks or months of your life building this thing that nobody really wants. So if you follow my approach and you do your homework, that's not going to happen to you. Then the evaluate stage, where we talk about strategy, your goals and objectives, any research that you might need to do, planning out your marketing, making final decisions on your platforms and your technology, action and outline. Now, I just taught you in like 5 seconds how to outline your course. So when people are always like, well, why is phase 3 like the outline part? This is though where we're going to get super more into depth about how we're going to engage our learners, how we're going to, what instructional materials are we going to include? Are we going to have a Facebook group? Are there going to be weekly calls? That's kind of where we plan that all out. And then your content creation. If you're going to script it or not, if you're going to have transcripts, if you're going to have, face to video or, video over PowerPoint or, voice over PowerPoint. What all that's going to look like, that's all the content creation phase, which obviously is the densest part of that. And then H in my framework is to turn up the heat on your marketing, to really, really hone and refine what you've created, to go in and kind of identify any gaps. Think about of what you've created. One of my favorite things is after somebody's created a course, looking back at all that material and being like, we could pull this piece out and we could sell this separately, or that you could have this be your freebie or whatever that might be. Like it's my absolutely favorite part about course creation. So how does your new program feed your business is part of that. And then, you said, great, Tracy, but you promised me a solution, and I have one. So the only way to get to the top of the mountain is to start climbing. And if you zoom in on this guy, he's not wearing a shirt. I don't advise it, but there he is at the top of the mountain. So the bottom line is, right, you can't build it if you don't start. Please start. Don't keep procrastinating starting. Basically, you just need a clear, measurable plan, clear outcomes for your course. I would highly recommend that you use a tested and true course development framework like the one I just presented. Really, really use what you already have. Don't start over if you don't have to. The tech, the platform, not as complicated as we make them seem to be. I know that Jess can handle any platform questions. I will also include just a little PDF with my favorite course creation tools. Nothing expensive. You don't need a lot of stuff. Like, it does not have to be an obstacle for you. I highly, highly encourage you to take into account how adults learn. And we all have heard there's 3 ways that people learn, and you have to teach the way that they learn. That's BS. When you're dealing with adults, we have preferences. So you're going to reach more learners if you offer your content in a variety of ways so that it can fit our busy lifestyles, right? Sometimes I want to watch a video. Sometimes I'm not able to watch a video and I want to listen to the audio. And sometimes I want neither and I want a transcript so I can just kind of read through and get what I need to get. If you can do all those things, it's not expensive to do it. Your course is going to be more successful for it. And I teach all these things in my course creation bootcamp. If you are interested in learning more about that, I highly encourage you just to reach out, shoot me a message, and we can talk about that. I do also have what I call a set it and forget it course, a really low cost way to learn course creation the way I teach it and to get all of that secret sauce, that learner psychology stuff. In the boot camp, you get just a ton of FaceTime with me, which I think is where all the value is. It's not necessarily in the recorded content. So how was that for a crash course on holy crap, Tracy, that was a lot of information.
Holy crap, Tracy, that was a lot of information and delivered in a way that makes a lot of sense.
Excellent. Is there any questions? Anybody have any?
Can you stop your screen so I can see your face?
Oh, stop sharing.
There we go. Let me see. I didn't see any questions pop up, but I was watching your presentation. So let me see if there's anything.
Anything?
One thing.
Yes.
No, it's really good presentation. Actually, I've just been on mute the whole thing. I had to go out a couple of times. I don't know if you mentioned the platforms that you currently use and deliver the content on.
I did not. I personally have been in almost every platform imaginable. I like a lot of them for a lot of different reasons, and I use different ones for different reasons. So like I started out in Teachable, I migrated to Thinkific. I still use Thinkific for all my free stuff because I got in their free plan, and anything I offer for free is I just do it for free over there. My membership, my boot camp is in FG Funnels. I like their course platform. I like how it's built. I know Jessica does all things Kartra. Kartra is not intuitive to me, but I love the way my clients' courses look in Kartra and the way they work. I struggle with building my own in there. The bottom line is it does not matter. You pick what feels good for you. And Jess was just in my group 2 weeks ago talking about this very subject. There are plus and minuses to every one.
Yeah.
And I think, if it's your first course, start with what you can afford, do, something like super inexpensive and affordable. You can always move it later. But if you, once you get somewhere where you're comfortable, then stay there. Like that's the lesson. I know Jessica agrees.
And the discussion that I had in Tracy's group, and I haven't shared it here because it wasn't platform specific, it was giving you a whole bunch of different ideas and different ways to look at how you're deciding on a course. I know we didn't really include platform specific things since the group is pretty centric on Kartra. I worked in Kajabi, I worked in FG Funnels. The core of my business is Kartra. So that's where I resolve because it's what I know best, but you could deliver a course through email only and it would still be great.
Best course I ever took was dripped into my email, 1 email a week for 6 weeks. And it was very, very concise. It was very thorough and super easy to consume. And it cost her nothing to build that,
You could have a MailerLite account with up to 1,000 people on your MailerLite list for free.
Mm-hmm.
Or MailChimp or any of the other email platforms. I talk quite a bit about having market validation before you build something, and sometimes that really depends on where you are with your audience. If you're starting with an audience of 0, my answer is very different to how you should start a course than if you have a list of 30,000. It's very different.
And what else do you need in your business? Do you need the autoresponders? Do you need to be able to build funnels? Do you need, and I would argue that you do need all of those things if you're creating courses, that you do need all the automations that an all-in-one program provides. But the biggest way, honestly, to know what works well for you is to try them. Get a free trial, try it out, and I was 15 minutes in Kajabi before I was like, this is not for me. like I can tell you right off the bat that not only do I not want to spend $200 a month, but I just, it didn't work for me. So I think that's the best way, is just to try. I have a tool that I created. It's just a little survey that you can fill in, like basically like your level of expertise and what you're creating and what your content kind of is about. And it'll kind of poop out an idea to get you started. It's at tracyteaches.biz/quiz if you want to check that out. Some people find it super helpful. What I think it actually does is just sort of eliminate that indecision. You're like, oh, Tracy's quiz says I should use Kartra. Here I go. I'm gonna go use Kartra.
And one of the things that I want to put in there is, if you Kartra plans start at $99 a month. Is your course producing at least $99 a month for you to make this worth it? Because you can always start. It's so much easier and so much more fulfilling to move a course off of a free program when you're making money on it monthly to a paid platform than it is to move off of a paid platform because you're not turning in the revenue that you're expecting. Tracy, I wrote down 2 things while you were discussing messaging. Do you know the Febreeze story?
No.
How they had one heck of a time getting their messaging correct, because how do they properly tell people they're helping you get the stink out of your house? Because no one's going to admit that they have stink. It's a really, I'll find the story and I'll link it below, because I was like, oh, they had a very, very hard time with it. And then the other one is ClickUp. What is ClickUp's thing? They don't advertise as project management, which is what they are. They advertise as saving you 1 day a week.
Yes, that's gold. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to buy a project management software. I abhor project management software. I don't want one at all. But give me back a day a week. Heck yeah, like show me how that's going to happen. Yeah, and absolutely, and that's the case for everything, right? I mean, go back to the weight loss. Like, I don't want to, join a weight loss program, but I do want to feel like, like a dynamo in my body in 12 weeks or whatever that's going to be. Like, yeah,
that's why they're called Beachbody programs. And
Beachbody.
So
yeah, and it's just so much of all, so much of all this stuff, like all of the entrepreneurship stuff, especially in the online world, it just all comes back. The very beginning thing: who do you serve? What do you do differently? How do you explain what you do? And how do you define the problem that you solve so that they know they have it? And like, that's the core of everything that we do. You can apply that to your advertising. You can apply that to your course creation. You can apply that to what content I'm going to create. It's all the same.
And then once you have that framework, everything else fits in so nicely. You don't struggle to write a sales page because you know who your client is, you know what they struggle with, you know what your modules are, you know what your outcomes are, you know what your solution is. You've done all of the work in the front to get you where you need to be. This also helps you define if you're going to run ad sets behind it. It helps you define your branding and your messaging that comes through. It helps with so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there 2 things I will leave you guys with. 3 things. One, the first thing I'll leave you with before the things I'm going to leave you with are. Now I think I just distracted myself to the point where I don't remember. Shoot, I just lost my train of thought.
Sorry, I did it.
People don't want to buy your course. That was one of the 2 things. They want to buy the transformation. And the biggest obstacle to delivering that transformation is you and what you know that you can't forget that you know. And you just need to really focus on simplifying like your approach and what you know. And then the other thing, what did you say right before? I was going to leave you with one thing. I don't know.
I can remember songs from the 90s, but ask me what I thought 30 seconds ago. Where's our friend Herman?
Herman. Pushing 50 over here, like it just went out my brain. Nope, it's not gonna come back.
It'll come back, and you can pop it in the comments.
Yeah, I'll have it at 3 a.m. But yeah, get started. Make sure that you are clear on those core things. Totally hit me up if you have questions or you want to know more about what I do.
And we'll
That's
link
it.
your resources that you mentioned, the quiz, your $7 offer, your Facebook group. We'll link all of those in the chat. I think it's down here. I'm not really sure. Hit Tracy up for any questions on course somewhere. I don't know. I'm trying to make reels now, and I'm like, here. I look like a fool, but
Whatever works.
hey, something's working. We'll put all of that stuff in the chat for you. Certainly join Tracy's group, look at her course, jump on her mastermind that starts on the 11th.
Yes.
And
All
that's,
the things.
and that's
Yeah, and if you have any questions, even if they're like super detailed or complicated, whatever, just drop them here and I'll pop back in and address whatever I can.
Tracy's in the group now, so she gets to stay.
I'm in the in-crowd. I'm not a Kartra user. Don't tell Jessica.
I welcome and love everyone.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks, you guys. Thank you for being here live. And if you join us in a replay, make sure you just mention that you're here so I can see your face. And thanks, Jessica, for having me.
Absolutely. Love you, girl. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.